Thanks for tuning in to more golf coverage on Proline TV. I'm your host, Greg DePalma. A little late, but we're here. Of course, you got the college basketball week taking center stage. Lots going on in the world of sports, football, NASCAR, horse racing. I mean, you name it, and there's a lot on the table. But we are here, and we are going to go over our picks. We're going to go over, more importantly, all the information that you need in order to put your picks together for a successful week on the PGA Tour following consecutive really big events. You've got the signature event followed by the Players Championship. We've got a couple of weeks of laydown with the Valspar and then Houston before we get to the Masters. So we have a couple of weeks to kind of gear ourselves up. There are still some pretty good golfers that are going to tee it up this week at Valspar. I'm sure some of the golfers that decided to take this week off might come in to Houston to try to get ready for Augusta. And then some might just decide to take off a couple of weeks in preparation for the first major of the season. All right, so let's get started. We are again talking about the Valspar Championship. Let's put that on the board here. And as you can see, the Valspar, Innisbrook, pretty tough golf course. Not an easy golf course, including the Snake Pit. That's how tough the final stretch 16, 17, and 18 is at this golf course, that it has a name as daunting as the Snake Pit. So this is, once again, we have a Florida event with Bermuda greens, and we have a pretty good field that we're going to go over here in just a bit. But before we do that, let's take a look at some of the courses that we felt were the most similar that you might want to look at when you're breaking down these players and their history, not only at these courses, of course, but over at Valspar. So 1 year at the Canadian Open, because it's specifically Oakdale. Same thing for the Open Championship at Royal Troon in 2024. You can go back to 2016, but I don't think anybody in this event played there. And then the players, players that did play last week will maybe have a little bit of an edge. And the fact is that there were a lot of players that obviously played there that'll play here, but there's also a lot of players, half the field, that didn't. So there's still a lot of long shots out there that did not get that opportunity. And it is interesting because I think one of the trends we have is that since the players moved back to March with their schedule, all 6 winners that preceded the players to the Valspar actually played at TPC Sawgrass. So in other words, if you didn't play at the TPC before here, at least since the move back to March for the players, you haven't won. So again, I think that's definitely an advantage, no question about it. And the 3M Open as well, as you can see there at the top. Okay, let's now take a look at some of the top trends. And we've got some pretty interesting trends here to go over. Let's see. Starting, first of all, as you can see there, this is a real interesting one, because if you're deciding to take a player, and it's kind of unusual that I'll take a player that is either won the previous year at this event, or won the previous week, or maybe just has a win at this event, because it's just hard to double up any time on the PGA Tour in those different ways. It's just very tough. The odds are not with you, but the odds are with you here at Innisbrook. So 25%, that's pretty interesting. Of course, we've only have a certain number. I think it's 24 events in total at the Valspar, but 25%, that's pretty strong. Have won this event twice, and 2 players won back-to-back, Burns and Casey. So that might bode well for Victor Hovland's chances. Also, you can see there the long shot variety definitely comes about here 50% of the time, with the first-time winners ranking outside the top 90. Look at those numbers. Matter of fact, last year's winner, 184th in the world. So don't worry. Don't be bashful to go after some of these players that are in the hundreds or over the top 90. And anytime we go to those types of events, makes it very hard to handicap. It's the hardest thing to do in golf is to handicap long shots. To say, okay, hey, it's a long shot course. Go ahead and pick the long shot. It's very difficult. All right. Anyway, 11 of the last 12 winners also ranked outside the top 10. And I think we only have one player. I don't think we have more than one. I think Xander Schauffele. Is he the only one? Yes, he is. Xander Schauffele is the only top 10 player this week. So that does not bode well for him. 17 of the 20 all-time first-time winners made at least 4 appearances or less. And in 10 of the last 16, 3 appearances or less. So really interesting enough, and again, maybe this is where the long shots come in, is that you do not have to have a lot of experience to win here. All right. And usually that is the deal when it comes to taking a look at long shots. All right. Also, we have so many positive trends here that we had to go to a second board. And as you can see here, even though we've had a good number of players that have won here on a 4th appearance, a 3rd appearance, and a 2nd appearance, only 2 have won here on their 1st appearance. Okay. And only 2 first-time winners scored a previous top 5 here. How about that? So you're talking 2 out of, again, first-time winners, it's whatever, 19, 20, I forget what it is. But that's a very low number. And there are some good players that I like this week that most of us would like this week that do have previous top 5s here. 6 of the last 7 failed to score previous top 10, with 5 failing to score previous top 25. All right. So interesting that you would only have 2 that scored. So basically it's a good number did not score a top 5, and even better did not score a top 10, and a pretty good number as well failed to score previous top 25. What is that saying? It's pretty simple. You do not have to have a good experience here in the past to play well here and capture a win. All right. So if you're looking at the board, you're looking at previous results of players that play here. Do not worry if players do not have a good resume at this golf course. And also, don't worry if they have, and again, this is where long shots come in. Don't worry if they have never won a PGA Tour event or even have just won one. Matter of fact, if you see here, look at it, 6 of 24. Which is, what is that? 25% also. 25% were first-time maiden PGA Tour winners. 4 of the last 10. That's up to 40% recently. 9 of the last 12 made this their first or second PGA Tour win. And there you go. All right. So those are some of the key trends to keep an eye on. Now, let's go through. Before we go through the board, I just want to pop up some key stats. And one of the things that are really important to play here is your iron game. Okay. So because of the difficulty of the fairways and such, there's not going to be a lot of driver activity. There'll be a little, but not a lot. So they're taking out the long and short irons, a lot of long iron play. And maybe this also has a lot to do with the fact that you have experience as the players, because that's also a venue where you're going to be playing with the long iron game. So the long iron game is really what you're looking for. So specifically 175 to 200, 200 plus. So really 175 and up, that's what you want to be looking for. Take a look at the stats, see who's doing well with the long iron game. And then another thing to keep in mind is, because it is a tough course, especially the par 3 scoring and the par 4 scoring, par 5 scoring is really important. Now, it's not important at the players. Okay, that wasn't an important thing at the players. It's a lot more important here. You need to take advantage of the par 5s on this golf course. All right, so par 5 scoring is important. And again, if anything, keep an eye on iron play. All right, iron play is very, very important. Let's take a look at the main group. And here we go. Our main group consists of the top 6. Here, as you see, it was almost a top 7 And this is, of course, going to be pretty interesting because I'm not going to wait until later when we do our one and done. But if you followed the program every week, you might recall the one and done, my one and done picks lately. For the last 3 weeks, well, I have 2 one and dones. So I have 2 accounts, but the better of the account, 3 weeks ago, things were going really well. We were under 1,000. So we were about 800 overall in the rankings, which is pretty good without a win. And Shane Lowry was our pick. And Shane Lowry, you know what happened to Shane Lowry is he completely choked away the Cognizant Classic. And that would begin a pretty bad stretch for me with the one group. Because the next week, I would go on and take Rory McIlroy, who had to withdraw, after the first round or second round. He was 4 under par. He was in contention. Back injury. That's it. Over. Okay, that's not good. Last week, my number one and done player was Colin Morikawa. Now, Colin did not decide to withdraw before the event, which really would have helped. Instead, he decided, I'm going to go ahead and play a hole. I don't feel too well. I'm going to withdraw. And so for the 3rd straight week, my top one and done player, it's just throw it in the garbage, right? Well, two throw it in the garbage. One, I felt like garbage, just like Shane Lowry did. Probably less. Shane felt it more. So this week, with my one and dones, I had 2 players. And yes, one of them was Akshay Bhatia. And at least Akshay decided to withdraw today. So that's why he's not on this board. So Akshay Bhatia, who went in at 22-1, was one of my one and dones, but he's off. So we have someone replacing him that we'll go over a little bit later on. But there's the top players that I think you should be keeping an eye on. This is the main group right here. Of course, Xander Schauffele, as I said, is the only top 10 world ranked player that's going to be playing this week. And then you have a couple of really good players from overseas: Matthew Fitzpatrick, defending champ Victor Hovland, Justin Thomas came out of nowhere and is the 2nd event of the year and had a top 10 at the Players, which was just amazing. And then you take a look at Jacob Bridgman, who, like Akshay Bhatia, is absolutely on fire. And Brooks Koepka has also played well over his last 2 events. So he is somebody that you should keep an eye on. So out of this group, with Schauffele, he's played here 3 times. He has 3 top 15s and 1 top 5. His stats actually are really good here because his overall game is not yet where he needed to be, especially his putter. But the stats that you need to play well here, so the formula that we have, he actually is pretty good. So this would be a good week. Unfortunately, he's 11-1. He's a low number. But other than that, Xander Schauffele would be a really smart play. So, matter of fact, I even considered him for one and done. The only reason I didn't do it is because I'd like to save him for a big event. If this was a bigger event, of course, it would be different. He'd have a full field, but you get the point. Then I would definitely look his way. And he has a win, by the way, at Royal Troon. How about that? In one of our correlated courses. So, and he's coming off a really good showing last week at the Players. So yeah, this is a good week for Xander Schauffele. And who knows? Back of my mind, I'm sure it's going to be, come on, take Xander on your one and done. You've got a few more hours to change your mind. Just get a win, because sometimes just getting a win is just as important. And again, I have an account. I have 2 accounts. So who knows? I might still change my mind. And I think Xander Schauffele is a pretty good one and done option, but I completely understand why you would want to wait for a bigger event. Victor Hovland, remember, we just went over the whole winning twice here, back to back. Well, if any place it can happen, it's here. But that's not the only reason you'd want to take a player. It's interesting because last year when Victor Hovland won this event, he came into the event as cold as any time that Victor Hovland could be. He had missed 3 consecutive cuts and then won here. But it's not that he's not playing well. Matter of fact, he's actually trending in the right direction. So he's playing a lot better now than he did last year when he won. He also has a third here. He's played here 3 times. He has 2 top 5s and a win. So he gets around the golf course really well. And the stats are okay. You know, some are okay, some are not. He's got a win at Memorial, one of our correlated courses, which is nice. And so, yeah, I think Victor Hovland is a very good option. I think one of the reasons why, if I decide to take Victor Hovland over Xander, would be odds. I'd be getting a lot better value there with Victor at 18-1 over Xander at 11-1. So I think Victor Hovland is a really good play again this week. And look, what can I say about Matthew Fitzpatrick? You know how I feel about him, how I played him this year. And it was probably predictable that he was my top pick at Bay Hill. And then he had like the worst week of the year for him, one of the worst, maybe his worst. And then he bounces right back and nearly wins the Players. That's typical. And this is why I say repeatedly, over and over again. And even though he wasn't one of my picks last week, I mean, I put money on him. So I was in good shape. That even if one of my, because again, we hit it with Cameron Young last week. He was our 3rd pick. So that was a big win for us. But even if he's not on the picks, you got to take a player that you just took the week before as your top pick. Now, don't go, oh, he had a bad week or he doesn't play particularly well at this course or whatever excuse you want to put in there. If you liked the player the week before and he doesn't perform well, this is golf. I mean, you know these guys, it's one week good, 1 week bad, vice versa. So if you felt there was a reason to like him the previous week, then take him again the next week. You don't have to put up the same amount of money, of course, but just make sure you have a little bit invested just in case he does hit the next week after missing out on the week that you took him or you put big money down on him. All right. So Matthew Fitzpatrick, yeah. You know, I was going around trying to see how some of the experts, Golf Digest and all these other sites and who they were going with. And I was really surprised not to see Matthew Fitzpatrick around. I almost to the point where I was like, do they know something I don't? Because I just think this is one of those situations where it almost looks too easy for me based on how we've liked Matthew Fitzpatrick this year. Now, maybe these guys haven't. Maybe a majority of them haven't felt the same way that we have. But after his performance last week, damn right we're going to take him this week. Why wouldn't we? I mean, his stats are just still all over the board in excellent shape, as good or if not better than any golfer coming in this week. It's not like he went to a playoff or a sudden death, 5 holes, and he's exhausted and all that kind of stuff. I just look, if he was exhausted, just don't play this week. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. And I get 14-1, which is not bad. So he's coming in a nice kind of run. And he also, interesting, he's played 3 times. He's missed 2 cuts, but the one time he made the cut, he was in 5th place at 14 under par. Okay. And then, I mean, Justin Thomas, I still don't know how, if he's going to beat you, he's going to beat you. That's all I can say. Bridgman, though, he is red hot. And he is right now on a 7 straight run of top 20s with 3 top 5s and a win. Now, the only thing that would be a knock against him is, can Jacob Bridgman win twice in a span of 5 events? Something like that. That is asking a lot. But hey, Chris Gotterup did it. So yeah, I think Jacob Bridgman could. And what's working for Bridgman, there's a lot. Matter of fact, I think the only thing that's not working for him, all right, and it's important, is his long iron play. All right, that's the one thing that if I might have that long iron stat in my head going, you can't overcome it. You can't overcome it. Switch them from one and done. I've already teased you. And that's the thing. And it could happen because, again, I think that the long iron play is going to be very, very important this week. But he's so good in all the other stats, including the putter. Very good with the putter. and he's just red hot. And he was third last year here. Now, trend-wise, that may not be a good thing, but come on. Miscut third. So if there's a golf course out there that he could win a second event, this would probably be it, based on the fact that he was able to compete and nearly win it last year when he was not nearly as good as his game is this year. And Brooks Koepka, maybe I shouldn't be surprised of how many people liked Brooks Koepka, who was also hot a few weeks ago at the Cognizant. And because of a smaller field, if top players. Koepka's played here twice. His last appearance was 12th and 22. He's 11 under par then. But what I like more about Koepka right now is in his last two events, 9th at PGA National and 13th last week. And the putter has been better, which is important because that was really holding him back. And also his long iron play is excellent right now. So I think there's a lot to like about Brooks, especially the big one is the odds. Because let's be serious. Brooks Koepka, if he goes out there and wins this week, the next time he plays, he is going to be like an outlier favorite. He's going to be like, he's not going to be Scotty. He's not going to be Rory. He's going to be the next group. That's how quickly those odds will change on Brooks Koepka if he goes out there and wins, because he is still in the prime of his athletic career as one of the best players out there talent-wise. And you might, in some respects, you might go, 25-1, that's average, or I don't know. I mean, he's 173rd in the world for a reason. I want more than that. No, I don't think that's necessary. I actually think that's decent value at 25-1 in this field, the way he's playing and the player he is. Now, the one thing that would be an issue would be the fact that historically, when Brooks wins, he wins big events. He comes to play, and he's said sort of this philosophy before, is he tries to get his game going, and he works on his game at other events, and then the bigger ones, that's when he goes for it, that sort of thing. It's obviously not being exact with his statement there, but the fact really is that if you look at his history of winning, it doesn't happen a lot at these types of events. And so because of that, that would be a little bit of a signal. But because I think he knows that winning as much as possible, or just getting his game up, like I don't think he wants to go to the Masters without a win. I think he actually wants to get a win now, because he hasn't won in a while. He wasn't winning events in the Live. So I think it's important for him to get that feeling again, to be in contention for a win before he starts the major season. And so at 25-1, I think he's not bad value. Okay, let's move on. Contenders. These are the top contenders I would be looking at. And look, I'm not going to go with Jordan Spieth. I'm not going to go with Patrick Cantlay, but I think they should be on this board, because the last time Cantlay was here, it was 2017 when he was runner-up. He also has 2 wins at Memorial. All right, a correlated course, but the putter is not working for him, and that's a problem. And his overall game really isn't on. But look, there's reasons why I think that are legit that he should be on this board. Same thing with Spieth. He has a good history at this golf course, including winning it in 2015. But he hasn't played particularly well here the last couple of years, when his game hasn't really been good the last couple of years. And I don't think his game is ready to win an event. He just can't I don't think he could put 2 good rounds together, let alone 4. Because you're going to need to at least put 3 together here. And I can't at 25-1. No, I just can't do it. Corey Connors is another one at this level that I'm just not excited about, but I understand that he should be here. He was 8th last year. He has 3 top 25s in all 3 trips to Innisbrook, which is typical Corey without winning. But the putter is not going well on Bermuda. That's a big problem. A couple other stats not working for him. The one thing that is working for him besides his play here is he is trending in the right direction. There's a lot to like about the trend line over his last 6 events, including 13th last week. Hisatsune is another one that we have talked quite a bit about here. And we've been quiet the last few events because he just didn't deserve it. But now, smaller field. And if you look at it, he's got 4 top 15s over his last 6 with a runner-up. He's coming off a solid 13th last week at the Players. He's now trending again in the right direction. The one part of his game that's a little inconsistent is his iron play. But he is better with the longer irons, like the 200 or more compared to the 175 to 200. So I'm good with that, especially the other stats, which are also pretty good. Another thing, he was 4th here last year in his second appearance, which is very, very good. And the one more bad part is his putting. The putting is not good at all on Bermuda. So that's really what's been holding him back. He's been in contention a lot lately. The putter has let him down, and he's 30-1. I mean, I have no problem with him when we were talking about him at 100-1 and 80-1. And he's 30-1 now. I just can't take him at 30-1, but I can put him on the board. Thigala is a hot pick this week. And we understand why. You know, we've talked a lot about him here on the show the last couple of weeks as a nice long shot. Everybody's starting to pick up on that. But now, again, he's no longer really that big a long shot. He's 35-1. He's got 7 top 35s in his last 8, which are all this year. 3 of those are top 10s. He's coming off a 32nd place finish last week. And the stats are okay. You know, there's a few good, few bad. The putter has also been getting a little bit better on Bermuda, which is a nice sign. He's played here twice. He has 1 top 10. And Austin Smotherman, the main thing that I do not like about Smotherman, because there's a lot I do like, but the main thing are the odds. If you look at Smotherman at 40-1, those odds are a little bit too low for me. I think he should be, I really would prefer 50 at least. But again, I understand the field. He's played here a couple of times, made the cut both times. 25th was his best finish. And he's looking for his first PGA Tour win. Okay. He's got 3 top 15s in his last 5 on the year, including the runner-up at PGA National, 13th last week. And overall, the stats are pretty good, including some of his iron play, which is also pretty decent, between 175 and 200. He's got a couple of KFT Tour wins in 2025. So he does have winning in him. He came close to winning that event. Did not have a good Sunday at the Cognizant, but he'll learn from that. And I think he's a pretty good play because of it this week. All right, let's move on. Long shots. All right, these are all the long shots. And out of these long shots, the ones I'm going to talk about, we're going to start at the top with Nick Taylor. All right. Nick won the Canadian Open in 2023, the exact Canadian Open we are looking for. Okay. He also had a 4th at Memorial last year. So really good on those courses. He has just 3 top 25s in 9 appearances. Nothing great. 10th was his best finish in 2023, but that's okay. Nothing wrong with that here. He's got 8 straight cuts. His stats are pretty decent. He doesn't have any bad stats coming in. Matter of fact, his best stat is bogey avoidance, which is really important here because, again, this is a tough course, and that's an important stat. And the putter is also headed in the right direction. I think Nick Taylor is one of the better long shots this week. I kind of feel the same way a little bit, not as much, but I feel pretty good about Patrick Rodgers. On the bad side, he's played here 7 times. He's failed to make the cut 5 of them, but he doesn't even have a top 35. Okay. But as we have said, this is not one of these courses that really matters as much. What I really like is he's made 9 straight cuts, and in his last 5 events, he's made a really good run trend-wise. Keeps getting better, including 11th last week. Just just that much. And he would have had a top 10 to players. And so and his putting's been solid too. So I think Patrick Rodgers is a decent long shot play here. Another long shot play that we like more than the others would be Lee Hodges. He's sitting there at a very generous 140 to 1 range. He has played here 3 times. He's been better each time, including 26th a couple of years ago. The putter is very good right now in Bermuda. Some of the stats, not so good. He's got a couple that are, the one that really is off here is the long iron game. Not what we want to see, okay? But that's why you're getting a long shot. He's not going to have great stats, but he did win the 3M Open a couple of years ago. That's his only PGA Tour win. It was on a correlated course. I like the trend line at this location over his appearances and a few other factors, including a big number of 140 to 1. So he is one of my top long shot plays. And then the other one is Billy Horschel. Horschel, his putter is really getting on fire here on Bermuda lately. So he's got the putter rolling really well. Also, in his first 4 appearances at Innisbrook, he had 3 missed cuts and a combined 20 over par. The last 2 years at Innisbrook, he finished 12th in 24 and 4th last year in 25 for a combined 13 under par. The stats are all over the place in a more negative way. Billy's game is just not good right now, which is why it's 100 to 1. But he's coming off a 13th a couple of weeks at Bay Hill, which is a pretty solid showing. He's got a win at Memorial, and he also has a runner-up at the Open at Troon a couple of years ago. So there were things that I like. The things that I like are a lot what I said, and the things that are not good are the stats. He's just not playing well. But there are a lot of other factors that say, you know what, horse for course, that sort of thing. And maybe this is somebody that you want to keep an eye on this week as far as a long shot. Now, let's take a look at the picks. Here we go. Not a surprise. Matthew Fitzpatrick, I certainly hope. Look, I think we're going to find out this week for sure whether or not Matthew is going to, whether we're going to have a good relationship with Matthew Fitzpatrick this year, because it's still early in the season. And if he has a bad week this week and I just picked him again, then that's it. We won't be putting Matthew Fitzpatrick on this board for a while. Victor Hovland, I'm willing to take the chance on another player winning back-to-back and for a second time here. Brooks Koepka, again, like I said, I think he's good value at 25 to 1. And then there are my top 2 long shots, Nick Taylor and Austin Smotherman, including a few of the others, like I mentioned, Patrick Rodgers, Billy Horschel, to name a few. Here are the official one and dones. So unless one of these 2 winds up with drawing and the next or choking on Sunday, hopefully we'll get back in the right direction. Right now, we have Jacob Bridgman in our top one and done group. So, and we've had a tremendous year, really, in that group, with the exception of 2 straight WDs. So we got to get Jacob. And really, the reason that my initial reason for going with Jacob, there's a few reasons, but the initial one is I got to get some momentum going again. And he's the most consistent golfer going into this event than anybody else. He's it. He has been the best, most consistent golfer in the last 10 weeks than anybody else, with the top 20s and the win and so forth in his game. So I got to get back on that run. That's why I try to say, don't go into one and done, always thinking about winning. You got to think about, in certain events, especially the ones where there's not a lot of money at stake, of at least, see if you can get in the top 5, see if you can just get yourself and your momentum going again. And Victor Hovland, again, we had Batia, but with him withdrawing, Hovland will take his place. Now, as far as other possibilities, like I mentioned, if I'm thinking about changing my mind at the last second and I get the thoughts in my head, the ones that I would look at would be Xander Schauffele. If I decide to screw it, I've got two groups. I'm going to use them. I got to get a win. I got to get some positive momentum here. I could do that. I think Xander's a good choice. I've already used Fitzpatrick up in one of my groups, so I'm not using him up now. So I'm gonna hold off Matthew for a bigger event. I figured Hovland because he's never won a major, and I don't know if I could trust Victor in going out there and having a great year since he didn't have necessarily that huge of a year last year. We're kind of waiting for Victor to take that next step, to be that top 5 player. And if he's going to be that player this year, then that's kind of where it's like, well, then I do want him for something better than the Valspar. But in a 2-group situation, there's always that, well, maybe he won't be that player, and he's never won a major yet, and the players is gone. So, yeah, I think it's one of those situations where this type of event may not be bad, especially since he has a really good resume here. The others I would consider too would be Brooks, but with Brooks, it's like I said, big game player, and I really think that if he goes on to have a good season, he's gonna have that big one in him, and I want to be there when he gets it. And honestly, I just don't think there's anyone else that I would trust this week. So Brooks Koepka and Xander Schauffele are the only other 2 players that I might consider substituting for either or both here on the board. But right now, and we're on Wednesday, so it's not like we would do a show on Monday. We got a couple of weeks to think about it. We only have a few hours to think about it. Looks like I'm going to go with Jacob Bridgman and Victor Hovland. Okay. And then we're going to wrap it up. Now, this is our DFS fantasy team, and this is what we went with. So I decided, since those were my picks, 3 of them, Koepka, Bridgman, Fitzpatrick, I figured let me put them all on the board here. And I can afford to do that because I'm going also with Smotherman, who's on my picks. I get a little bit cheaper deal there. And I'm going to go with a couple other long shots that I spoke about with Horschel and Hodges. Because this is not a big event with a lot of big players. And this is a long shot resulted course, then I think you have to roll the dice on some long shots. And that's the reason why, instead of maybe spreading it out like you normally would have to in a big event like the Players, that's how you win at the Players, not so much at Valspar. But again, some of the other players I like. I just don't think that this would be a good week to take someone like Xander here, because I think you have other options and he's such a big price. Maybe even the same thing with Victor. I'd rather take a chance with Victor in a one and done. I think Victor's like a hit or miss type of pick this week. And I don't want to hit or miss in my fantasy team. And then going down the board, players that I would trust. I mean, I can't trust Corey Connors at 9,000. I don't even know if I can trust Sahith at 8,800. That's a big number to trust Sahith. Same thing with Satsune. But then you've got a whole lot of players. I mean, Clark and Homa that you can look at. But I think, Grayson just withdrew as well. I was not aware of that. Well, we didn't have him on our picks anyway. So, look, Patrick Rogers is nice at 7,600. Taylor Moore's playing well. Talk about winning a second event here. Well, he's at 7,500. So Taylor Moore is actually getting his game going again. He wouldn't be a bad idea if you wanted to save a few bucks in this area. And I think that's about it. So, again, these are the ones I'm going with as of now. Not sure I'll change my mind before we are up and ready to go for tomorrow morning, but that's going to wrap it up. Now, coming on, hopefully a little bit later on, we have our Playbook ATS podcast show. So we'll talk some more college hoops with Andy Iskoe and with Jim Feist, Mark Lawrence hosting. Of course, Mark is working his butt off behind the scenes with his college basketball newsletter. So hopefully we'll have him ready to go. If so, we'll be up at 4 o'clock Eastern for a live show. So look out for our final college basketball preview show. We've already done the big one on Monday night. We did one, of course, on the Jim Fice handicapping show yesterday, and we'll wrap it all up on our show a little bit later on today. And then we've got our horse racing coverage back with our more Kentucky Derby prep races coming up this weekend. So we'll be talking about that tomorrow. And then it's all college basketball. Look out for some little videos, shorts, reports, things like that, especially before Saturday. Maybe we'll sneak in a report. But for you golf fans, don't forget, we'll be here next week again for the Houston Open. It'll be busy again, but not as busy as we were this week, putting together the March Madness brackets and all that. So hopefully we'll be on no later than Tuesday next week. And then, of course, the Masters is coming up in a few weeks. Can't wait for that. We had a big year last year with Rory winning, and that was nice. So we were spoiled. We're going to look to go back-to-back with the Masters coming up in a few weeks. But first things first, that's the Valspar. Let us know if you have any questions, comments, anything like that. And, of course, as you just saw, subscribe and like to the channel. That's very important to help us out here so we can continue to grow and to provide these types of videos for you. So that'll wrap it up. Once again,